Thank you for joining the Florida Environmental Justice Listening Session. I'm Lakeisha Robertson, Chief of Staff for the Gulf of Mexico Division, and I will be serving as your facilitator for tonight. Please note the chat box is reserved for technical issues. Please use the question and answer box to pose questions. To start tonight's session, we will have opening remarks by Fred Thompson, Acting Deputy Regional Administrator, Region 4. Fred, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Florida Environmental Justice Listening Session to obtain input that will help develop our upcoming $5 million grant announcement. These new grants will benefit the Gulf states of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. Tonight's session is hosted by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Region 4's Gulf of Mexico Division. We are grateful for the opportunity to hear firsthand the voices of community members and community leaders. Know that we are listening attentively and taking notes on your concerns, challenges, and ideas as you help us to identify areas in which EPA can assist with environmental and public health challenges. Environmental justice is a major priority for the Biden-Harris administration. The Gulf of Mexico Division is committed to amplifying the agency's focus on EJ to establish opportunities for enhanced engagement, such as tonight's listening session. As many might know, EPA defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, concerning the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. Also, I understand that this listening session will be a way for EPA Region 4 to hear from you on issues and concerns as we work to develop a future environmental justice grant request for application, also known as an RFA. These competitively selected projects will only be in the 5 Gulf states of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. As we develop this RFA, we envision the selected projects will directly benefit underserved communities in the Gulf of Mexico. Why are these grants important? Community-based nonprofits and other local leaders are on the front line to better understand and work closely with communities that are vulnerable, underserved, and overburdened with environmental justice concerns. This upcoming grant opportunity is well suited to address locally identified issues in a timely manner. Your expert input tonight will pave the way for intentional projects and activities on the Florida Gulf Coast, and we are extremely excited about that. In addition, Administrator Blackman and I are committed to visiting with you, learning from you, and partnering with you to make a difference in our Gulf states. Now, I will turn it back over to Lakeisha Robertson, our facilitator for tonight's listening session. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Now we're going to have a Gulf of Mexico Division overview and a discussion around its priorities from Mark Wyatt, Division Director for the Gulf of Mexico program. Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Good evening, everyone. The purpose of these sessions is to learn about the Gulf of Mexico Division and the release of our first environmental justice request for applications. The goal is to seek input on the issues directly affecting your communities, which will help inform our request for applications. The Gulf of Mexico is recognized worldwide as a vast and productive body of water with tremendous ecological, economic, and social value. The Gulf of Mexico watershed is made up of 33 major rivers draining from 31 U.S. states, and a large portion of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico coastline in the United States is over 1,630 miles long. Due to its expanse and value, the Gulf of Mexico Division responds to numerous environmental challenges facing the Gulf, including but not limited to excess nutrients that can cause hypoxic conditions, trash polluting waterways, flooding, and degradation and loss of natural features such as wetlands that provide vital ecosystem services. The Gulf of Mexico Division is a non-regulatory geographic program within EPA, and our work is centered around preserving and protecting the Gulf. The way that we do this is primarily through funding assistance agreements based on our statutory funding authority to conduct and promote coordination and acceleration of research, investigations, trainings, demonstrations, etc., relating to the cause, effect, extent, prevention, reduction, and elimination of water pollution as seen in Section 104(b)(3) of the Clean Water Act. Our funding authority is also influenced by current administrative priorities, the EPA Strategic Plan, and the Gulf of Mexico Division's 4 priority measures, which we'll see on the next few slides. The projects we'll see under these 4 priority measures will serve as examples of the types of projects that we can fund through this upcoming RFA. Since its inception in 1988, the Gulf of Mexico Division, with the cooperation of its partners, successfully implements and funds projects that lead to a thriving ecosystem. The projects center on our 4 measures: habitat restoration, environmental education and outreach, community resilience, and water quality. Habitat restoration focuses on improving and/or restoring water and habitat quality in watersheds throughout the 5 Gulf states and the Mississippi River Basin. Environmental education and outreach, like its name says, focuses on promoting and supporting environmental education and outreach. Community resilience focuses on supporting the development and implementation of coastal improvement programs, projects, and tools to enhance community planning, risk assessment, green infrastructure, and smart growth implementation. Water quality focuses on protecting, enhancing, and/or restoring coastal and upland habitats. In each of our 4 measures, there are numerous types of projects that we have funded or been involved with. Some of the habitat restoration projects we've funded include creating pollinator gardens, organizing community urban tree plantings, installing living shorelines, dune and marsh restoration planting events, and administering prescribed burns in some of our southeastern forests. This work helps provide protection from storm damage, supports commercial and recreational fisheries, provides nesting and foraging habitat for birds and other wildlife, protects pollinators, and improves water quality for recreational use and aquatic life. All of our efforts are cornerstones to environmental stewardship. Our goal is to heighten citizens' appreciation of the Gulf, which is believed to lead to positive behavioral practices. This can be accomplished by developing hands-on environmental initiatives and engaging citizens in restoration programs and projects. For example, we have funded projects that have created K-12 lesson plans and educational modules focused on numerous environmental topics, projects that gather community support for various programs, and projects like restoration plannings or participating in water quality monitoring trainings. In addition, our staff have participated in career days, field trips, and service learning projects with our grantees that teach the importance of our environment and environmental stewardship. We've even funded a project that helps students develop their reading and writing skills through reading their own environmentally themed stories over the radio. Community resilience is the capability to anticipate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from significant multi-hazard threats with minimum damage to social well-being, the economy, and the environment. We support community capacity building through vulnerability assessments and the development of adaptive capacity or resilience plans to assist communities in preparing for potential changes in the environment or future disruptive events. For example, We've funded projects that provide workforce development training for underserved communities like water quality training, green infrastructure training and maintenance, prescribed burn certifications, and more. We've also funded the development of indexes, tools, and guides for community resilience planning, as well as projects that use stakeholder participation for resilience planning and vulnerability assessments. We continuously work with the Gulf states to maximize efficiency and utility of water quality monitoring efforts for local managers. We support efforts to improve water and habitat quality to meet water quality standards throughout the 5 Gulf states and the Mississippi River Basin. Some of the funded project activities include pollution source tracking, the installment of litter getters to rid waterways of trash, working with local fishing communities to remove and document derelict crab traps, using floating wetlands to reduce excess nutrients, installing living shorelines or other green infrastructure projects that help improve water quality, sediment erosion, or stormwater flow, and projects that have trained local community members as water quality leaders. We've shown numerous project examples that the Gulf of Mexico Division has funded and participated in, but I'd like a second to emphasize the intersectionality of the projects and measures. For example, while a habitat restoration project may restore coastal marshes, it often has an education component by including community volunteers or educating the public about the restoration project. Restoring coastal marshes would also improve storm resiliency by providing flood protection and can improve water quality through the capture of nutrients and sediments. Many of our projects involve multiple measures, and I mention this point to ensure that the projects we've shown are not viewed in isolation to their measure, but instead are viewed as holistic in that they incorporate multiple, if not all, of our measures. And with that said, before I hand it back over to Lakeisha, I would just like to emphasize or re-emphasize the need for your comments, your thoughts, your questions, anything like that is greatly appreciated and will help us in the development of this upcoming RFA. Lakeisha?
Thank you, Mark. The highlighted activities Mark discussed are just a few examples of the great work being done on the Gulf Coast funded by the Gulf of Mexico Division. All of this can be replicated in your community. The development of our new EJ RFA will build upon our 4 measures while focusing on environmental justice issues. We plan to award $5 million across the 5 Gulf states, with approximately $1 million in each state. So that's $1 million we're dedicating to the work in Florida. How can you leverage the Gulf of Mexico Division's 4 focus areas: habitat restoration, environmental education and outreach, community resilience, and water quality to address environmental justice needs of your communities? We need to hear from you tonight to inform the development of our request for applications. Your input is very important. One example to help generate some thoughts in terms of the input that can be provided tonight is, I live in a community where flooding is a huge concern in the historic First Ward, a low-income, minority-majority neighborhood. Rapid development around this area has increased storm runoff. Trash accumulation in the local bayous has created choking points that increase the flooding risk in many parts of the First Ward. These issues affect the community's resilience due to the increased flooding risk. The trash-filled bayous are causing a water quality concern. Before we start the comment portion of the webinar, here are the instructions. If you wish to make a comment, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 on the phone. Once your name or number has been called, please unmute your line or dial *6 on the phone. We ask that you limit your response to 3 minutes or less. Please remember to unselect the raise hand button and mute your microphone when you have finished your response. If you have any questions, please use the question and answer box, or you may email us questions after the session is complete. Please note that all questions submitted via the question and answer box will be answered within that same forum. Questions would not be answered live. We plan to have our last comment around 7:45 tonight. However, if we have any extra time and you'd like to speak again, you are more than welcome to raise your hand. Lastly, we'd like to remind everyone that this session, along with the comment period, is being recorded and will be available on our website following tonight's session. We ask that when speaking that you first introduce yourself and give a brief description of your community's needs and how the Gulf of Mexico Division focus areas can help address those issues and concerns. As reflected on the screen, you see our 4 focus areas are habitat, restoration, environmental education and outreach, community resilience, and water quality. How could the Gulf of Mexico Division focus areas help address issues in your community? Again, the information we received tonight will inform the development of our request for applications, and we hope this request for applications will be released sometime late summer, early fall. But this is an opportunity for the folks in Florida and anyone who wishes to provide comments tonight to let us know those issues and concerns that are troubling your community. So as a partner, we can work hand in hand to ensure this request for applications truly addresses those issues and concerns. So I am going to pause right now to see if we have anyone that would like to provide input. Camille, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to provide input. I am in Brevard County, Florida. I run a program called Little Growers, Inc. We help to design sustainability models in a food desert community that is also impacted by environmental pollution from corporate polluters like a chemical plant, a Superfund site, a brownfield site. We also deal with heavy flooding, and we sit adjacent to a 152-mile estuary known as the Indian River Lagoon. So we have a mixed issue that we are using green infrastructure projects to address all facets of that issue, from food security to water quality and community resilience. So my concern or question would be, oftentimes communities that are most impacted by issues of environmental justice also are the communities who are not at capacity in their grassroots work to be able to manage federal funding. How does the RFA support those communities in that process? And then is there potential that it would increase that capacity for the community as a whole through community resilience and participation, would be able to create solutions to those issues and address them within their community. Little Grower Solutions does happen to be a urban sustainability demonstration site where we will be mitigating stormwater nutrients, growing food for the community to address food justice issues, and dealing with pulling toxins from the soil and groundwater using plants like sunflowers and other native plants for bioremediation. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. We appreciate your input. Next, we will have Timothy. Timothy, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Good afternoon. I represent the Escambia County location of Florida, and we have been inundated with flooding issues in the Olive Heights, Rolling Hill, and Wedgewood community for over 35 years. The area has been zoned as actually a no flooding zone by FEMA. So therefore, when in this Black and brown community, when storm hits, if the cost is not above $10 million, those folks are not considered as far as being funded for repairs or anything of that nature. So we have been fighting with our county commissioners back and forth with the state of Florida, the Department of Environmental Protection. I've had meetings with those folks as well. And we noticed that a lot of times when the funding is available, it seems to be funded or focused down toward the South Florida, more so than it is in the Northwest Florida region. The problem that we're having is in a lot of the Black and brown community, because of the location or I would say the location is 117 feet above sea level. So it's zoned for not being flooded. So most of those folks who lived in that community do not have flood insurance. So therefore, when a disaster hits, it affects them greatly. One of the main tributaries that we have is Marcus Bayou, which is a key point. It's actually the starting point of where all the problems began. And because of the fact that we have over 13 online landfills and C&D as well as landfills in that location, great amounts of pollution have been developed in that area because of the fact that companies have been allowed to come in and set up housekeeping. Because of that, it has caused that community to take a tremendous hit because of the fact there is no sewer connection, and most of the folks that live in that community are on septic. So now we have a problem where that Marcus Bayou is being polluted with health issues or health waste coming from their septic tanks and things of that nature. In the study, we found out that all of this is flowing downhill into other areas like one of our locations all the way down to Perdido Key. So we're having some issues here in the Escambia County area, and we're hoping that possibly that some of this funding can be redirected here in this area. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Calvin. Calvin, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Actually, I'm with Tim. And what just to iterate with what he said, those are 11 unlined toxic landfills that is creating this flooding that the area is having. And because there's no stormwater management system in that community, we're talking 2 and 3 feet of water in people's backyards when we have real heavy rain events. Again, as Tim stated, we are missing when the funds are not coming in Northwest Florida. When the needs to be able to start looking at the community resiliency, when he was talking about those things going into Marcus Bayou. From Marcus Bayou, it goes on into Crescent Lake, into Crescent Lake, into Perdido River, into Perdido River, into our into Escambia Bay, and it all starts up at that area. And it's not. We tried to address it with FDEP, and they said that they did not work on the same level as EAP with the Clean Water Act. That's what we were told when we went to meet with them. And so we need some help to be able to start getting some resiliency so that we can get those communities remediated. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Next, we'll have Gloria. Gloria, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Thank you.
I think you're still muted, Gloria. If you would unmute
There we go.
yourself.
There we go.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Hello, I'm Gloria McNair, and I'm the Manager of Community Engagement and Equity for Groundwork Jacksonville. And we are working on the Emerald Trail, which is will be 30 miles of pedestrian and cycling trail that will connect 14 neighborhoods, 16 schools, 2 colleges, 21 parks, and 2 creeks. This is the urban core of Jacksonville, which is made up of majority Black and brown people. Some of them are still the victims of redlining practices that took place back in the day. You can see an overlay with our current zoning that kind of matches with the redlining that took place. Communities that have been neglected in many cases. When I speak of the 2 creeks involved, they are creeks that are contaminated. With industrial waste. There's E. coli in the water, and so a lot of contamination there. So before we could build the trails, we had to work on these creek restorations. So the first one is McCoy's Creek, which is in Mixon Town. And so we're doing a creek restoration, which involves habitat restoration, and the creek is going to be clean, so the water quality. But there's also the educational factor that we've been working on within that community and with all of our communities. They've been engaged from the very beginning to talk to them about creek restoration, about the benefits of trails and how it will connect some communities that have been separated, people who grew up together, but with the building of freeways that cut off communities, this trail has the potential to reconnect them. One of the other issues that people are concerned about, they were like, well, we're building these beautiful trails and we're cleaning up the waterways. What about the maintenance of all of this? Well, Groundwork Jacksonville is attempting to build to do workforce development, having our Emerald Trail stewards who will come from those neighborhoods, who will be responsible for maintaining the native plants and trees that will be planted, and going in and doing more than just a mow and go, but actually maintaining the areas, picking up trash, being good stewards of the community. We also have youth programs around growing leadership, stewardship among our youth, our next leaders for Jacksonville. One is, of course, our green team. And I have a group called CREST, Community Restoration Environmental Stewardship Training Group. And we do so much, and it's hard to say in 3 minutes, but that was what we do in a nutshell. And I think we cover all 4 of these areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. I saw a hand. I think it may have disappeared. Are there others that would like to provide input tonight? Just remember to use your raise the hand feature or dial *9 on the phone. Miles, I think you're unmuted, but you may unmute yourself. Miles? Miles, are you there?
Miles is unmuted. Let's
Oh.
see here.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, no, my first question was just posing who the eligible applicants were. But work with a number of underserved and disadvantaged communities throughout Florida. And more recently with the Florida Brownfield Association, we've been working with the Northport St. Joe community. So I think they're on, and wait for their comments. I think they have projects that will fit perfectly within this grant. And really appreciate the opportunity to listen in. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. Next up, we have Sarah. Sarah, I think you were unmuted, but please unmute yourself, please.
Okay, am I being heard?
Yes.
Oh, great. So I just wanted to add one thing to something that
Sarah, we lost you there. If you're speaking, please unmute yourself.
okay, I thought I was.
Okay, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, great. So I wanted to add something to what Dr. Avant was saying about the communities in the greater Wedgwood, Rolling Hills, Mount Olivet area. That those homes there are primarily minority owned and occupied, certainly at this time. They were very, very nice homes before the online pits were allowed to be located into those neighborhoods. And the lack of stormwater infrastructure and the neglect on the part of our the citizenry and the leadership of the county are the things that have contributed to what may not, might not meet that the typical flood plain area description or a Superfund site. I just want to add, I am a resident here in Pensacola in Escambia County, and I can also just absolutely agree that this is a very big problem. And I'm hoping that we can find out what we need to do to get the proper attention. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Are there others that would like to provide input tonight? Please use the raise your hand feature or star 9 on your phone. Patrick, if you would like to speak, I think you're unmuted, so you may speak. Patrick? You may unmute yourself, Patrick.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. A general comment. I'm Patrick Barnes, and I own an environmental engineering practice. I also do a lot of community advocacy work, primarily through a company that I founded, a nonprofit called Limitless Vistas, which is a workforce development program. The question I have is, or comment, if you will, is to see to it that hopefully EPA is considering contracting that's outside of the norm in this RFA. And the reason I say that is that what typically occurs is that we get communities that are sort of advanced with a higher degree of capacity and able to submit for these RFAs, and those that are often more in need but don't quite have the capacity aren't somehow as empowered to submit. So I think that the RFA and the language, the contract and language that's in there needs to be creative enough to empower or to consider or to score higher or properly evaluate or include communities that may be otherwise overlooked in processes like these. So I'm not sure if that conversation is being had, but we need to look for ways to better include those that are often most impacted by EJ that don't have the capacity oftentimes. And that's my comment.
Thank you, Patrick. And Miles, I see you're in the queue, and I wasn't sure if that was an error. If not, please unmute yourself if it wasn't an error. If it was, you can lower your hand.
Hi, this is Danny Bolden. Somehow I obviously came in on Miles's line. And Miles briefly mentioned the community that I'm from. I'm from up in the Panhandle. It's a little place called Port St. Joe, Florida. And it's a predominantly African-American community that for many years has been basically set in the middle of two industrial polluters. We had a chemical plant on one side and we had a paper mill on the other side. And over the years, a lot of the families that were there had high levels of people that died from lung cancer, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. And so a lot of the toxins that was emitted into the air just flowed right over into the community, and it really had an impact on the people's life. But our real problem was that, besides that one being the number one, but our real problem now, since the paper mill and the chemical plant both have since shut down, both were designated as brownfield sites, is that for years, the paper company would dump its debris, some of its toxic waste in the community of where the African Americans lived in North Port St. Joe. And subsequently, those properties were eventually sold to the residents for building houses on them. The big problem there also was not only was the houses being built on a landfill, but there was an underwater stream that was flowing through the community as well. So over the years, now those homes are not only sitting on toxic soil, but they're also sitting on soil that's actually causing houses to actually subside into the ground. We've been working very closely with the Florida Brownsville Association. Miles and Patrick, who just spoke, have been working with us very closely. And we've been successful in securing a EPA collaborative problem solving grant so that we can begin to look at to address some of those problems that we're having. But one thing that we know for sure, these problems are not going to go away. We've got to figure out a way, one, to really mitigate the water that's coming in underground through the stream that basically is causing flooding, as well as causing many of the homes to subside. Our problem is these subsiding homes have really limited our number of available homes for people to continue to live in the community. A lot of the folks are having to actually leave the community in order to find a place to live. And we really don't want to see that happen, because we want to continue to, this is a very homogeneous African-American community that has a rich history and a culture. As one of the people said, you know, we had our own economic engineer. The community was very, very, very well taken care of. But as the years went by, with all of these houses sinking, with all this other environmental issues we have, we've actually been designated as a blighted community as it relates to the designation to become a what's called community redevelopment area. The problem with that is you have a community that doesn't generate a whole lot of wealth, and so there's not a whole lot of resources that are available to actually begin to address some of the structural problems that we have in the community. So our issue is certainly, you know, hopeful that if these types of funds are available to address some of the community resiliency issues that you were talking about, we certainly have one there in terms of we need to mitigate that water coming into the community and have it where it goes out someplace else, so that we can then go in and try to mitigate some of those properties that we have that where you can't build a house, or there's a house that is sitting on the soil that's basically sinking in the ground because of the paper mill debris and the other toxins that were there, and clean that stuff up so that we can then build homes on that property, and so that we can continue to keep our community intact. The history of our community has been one where there has been a lack of investment or even a lack of intention to make changes that would be significant to change the quality of life for people living in my community. I have to ditto what Patrick said. One of the reasons why a community like mine for years have not been able to successfully be able to access these resources is because of the lack of capacity. We've been successful in that we've had some people now who have come forward to support our community as we try to eliminate not only the structural issues, but some of the issues that are related to the health issues that were caused by the many years of exposure to the paper company. So we're working very closely also with the Nature Conservancy to address.
Daniel, I'm sorry. Daniel, I'm sorry.
Okay,
We've
sure.
passed your time.
Oh,
Want
that's
to
fine.
want to be
No
respectful
problem.
of
Go ahead.
others, but
All right.
if there are no additional hands raised or anyone that's waiting on the phone to ask, I'm sorry, to pose or to provide input, I should say, you're more than welcome to come back on and finish your comment.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Yeah, I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, if you would please, I think you're unmuted. You may proceed. Chris Kerb. Chris, you may unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. There
Oh,
is an
sorry about
echo
that.
in the background.
That's because I got two things going. Let me walk outside. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I want to echo what Dr. Avant and Tim Greer said about the Rolling Hills, Wedgewood, Olive Heights community next to the Rolling Hills C&D landfill that is contaminated. It drains water into the Crescent Lake, which goes into Bayou Marcus main tributary, flows all the way down into Perdido Bay, and that's in Escambia County, Florida. The community there is low income, disadvantaged, ethnic community, and they need septic tank to sewer conversion. There's all kind of flood mitigation that needs to be done in there. And I think there's like 5 stormwater ponds that don't even have outfalls. There's several other C&D or land pits in there that berm up the bank to keep the water going out, which floods the neighbors. All this water goes into Perdido Bay. There's flooding at the very downstream end of Perdido Bay in the Bayou Marcus Tributary B, which drains into the main tributary, and all this water comes from the Rolling Hills area. I worked with Escambia County for 25 years. I was the stormwater engineering manager for the last 7. And I now work for Flood Defenders, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan 501(c) organization. And we just want to give a shout out to this community to see if there's any type of grant availability to this program with EPA. And that's about all I got.
Thank you, Chris. And I just want to check. I see, Patrick, your hand is still up. I didn't know if that was an error or if you would like to provide additional input. Okay. Calvin, I see your hand is up as well. Would you like to provide additional input?
Yes, I'm looking at another project under the environmental education and outreach, something that we've been looking at doing a after school, not a summer school program for middle school and high school kids, teaching them environmental justice using a STEM STEM concept, teaching how to do water sampling, to do recycling, some robotics, some GIS mapping, and start teaching them so that the things that have happened in our community, the kids will already be aware and knowledgeable, and it will not allow it to happen anymore. But if we don't teach them, those same things can happen again in our community, and this would be an opportunity to train young people and get them so that we can alleviate this ever happening in our communities ever again. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. And next we have Timothy. Timothy, if you would like to provide input.
Yes, I
Proceed.
just something on another note. Because of the effects that problems that they're having in the Olive Heights and Rolling Hills in the Wedgwood community, the folks are not able to grow their own farm stuff that they were doing, like the vegetation they were once upon a time growing, like their collard greens, their corn, maybe their okra and things of that nature, because the ground is contaminated. Because those landfills were not did not have liners, it also caused the ground to be polluted. And I noticed that we were talking about possibly doing some type of rehab restoration, possible maybe doing some raised gardening or something in those communities to try to assist those folks in a way that they can get back to some form of normalcy. They used to grow their, like I said, they used to grow their own vegetation or their own gardens and stuff, and now it's to a point where they can't do those kind of things. And I was wondering if this program has something that they can possibly incorporate in that area, in that community. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Are there others that would like to provide input? Please remember to use your raise your hand feature or dial *9 on your phone. Your input tonight is very important to shaping the request for applications. We want to make sure that it includes issues and concerns that have been impacting your communities. And so the input tonight will help inform the development of the RFA. So please don't hold back. We want to make sure this $1 million investment in the state of Florida is truly of benefit to the communities that need it most. Considering our 4 focus areas of habitat restoration, water quality improvements, environmental education and outreach, and community resilience, are there any issues specific to Florida that you will want to share tonight? Again, we want to hear from you. Habitat restoration could include simple projects such as tree planting, riparian buffers, and dunes marsh restoration. Are there any habitat restoration type projects that may be needed in your community? Daryl? I think you're unmuted, Daryl. If you want to go ahead and provide input, please.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to echo a lot of comments tonight. Working with several communities in the Panhandle, stormwater is definitely a big issue. And one of the approaches that have been implemented recently and is the trend are regional stormwater wetland parks, which address historical flooding issues, but also provide amenities for the community. And there's several examples spread across the Panhandle. Corrine Jones is one of the new ones that the city of Pensacola put in down near the old sewer plant. And I think that's a great way to both restore habitat, address flooding issues, but then also provide again, an amenity for communities that really don't have a lot of amenities. And I think it's a nice way to hit several of your priorities. And it's very important to do projects that have that win-win. May cost a little more upfront, but when you look at the long-term benefits as well as the multiple benefits, it really provides amazing benefits to communities. So I just wanted to suggest that might be a way to really hit several of your bullets and make huge improvements in communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Are there others that would like to provide input tonight? Please remember to use your raise a hand feature and *9 on the phone. One of the things that we mentioned that this request for applications is truly a partnership of working with stakeholders like you on the line tonight. We want to be collaborative. We want to make sure this request for applications speak to your needs, and using this opportunity to gather input ensures just that the citizens of Florida are truly getting resources that will be of benefit to them. Again, please don't hold back. We want to hear from you all. We are learning tonight. Hi, Mary. I think you're unmuted if you want to go ahead and provide input.
Hi, yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. So I'm also located in the Panhandle, Northwest Florida area. And as others have mentioned, we're experiencing a large growth within this area from people retiring here or people just from moving from other locations, which is obviously impacting our natural resources as well as species habitat and things of that nature. So we are having approaches, as some have mentioned, addressing stormwater issues and things of that nature. But we really, in my mind, really need a strong outreach and education approach to not just people that are moving here, but current residents as well as our local municipalities, our city council members, county commissions, also the planning departments across the board, across Northwest Florida, on how we should be building in order to mitigate some of these impacts that we're having. I mean, obviously, we're doing habitat restoration. We're doing some outreach into community resilience. But if we can get it on the front end, we wouldn't have to go back and fix what could have been prevented to begin with. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of education. I don't mean that in a derogative manner, but that's basically what I've been seeing for the last 30 something years. So I just wanted to share that bit of information from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Camille, if you want to unmute yourself, please, you may proceed.
I just wanted to say that I do agree with Mary. Here in Brevard County with Little Growers Inc., we are collaborating with several community organizations to build an urban sustainability project that not only addresses the stormwater issues and reduces nutrients entering our lagoon, but it also provides food for the community. So it's addressing the fact that we are living in a USDA designated food desert, as well as we do run a 4-H garden club, so we provide education to youth. But to take it a step further, because we are dealing with corporate pollution and having to address issues of toxicity in our soil and our groundwater, what we've done is we're collaborating with a group that is designing an app for us called Orgo. And this app allows us to include citizen participation and education in all of these processes that we're designing. So right from getting the ground and soil water tested to identifying the toxicity in them, to then mapping out that toxicity and using this app to allow community members to participate in solutions so that they could come and maybe plant sunflowers that would draw metals out of the soil. So education is very important, and Little Growers is attacking that through the Orgo app. And we're using our community as not just this being a Little Growers Inc. project, but this being a project of the South Brevard community, and having organizations like the South Brevard NAACP, the Macedonia Community Development Board, housing development organizations, Club Esteem featuring the youth, giving us an opportunity to bring all of those groups together to spread that education throughout the community so that we teach our community good habits in the future and how to sustain the work that we're building. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Do we have others that would like to provide input tonight? Again, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 on the phone.
I believe Shirley Tilney is trying to raise her hand, but having difficulty. We can unmute her. There she goes.
Okay, go ahead, Shirley. Shirley, do you hear us?
Ms. Shirley, you should see a pop-up appear on your computer screen. Once we request that you unmute, you should be able to click that and unmute yourself.
Oh, I think I just did it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm from Escambia County as well. In fact, I'm part of Flood Defenders with Chris Kerb. We're one of his projects. We are on Inner Rarity Point Road. And unfortunately, everything from that road drains into Perdido Bay. But the county is basically insisting on treating each street as an individual project instead of the street as a whole. And, you know, we're working through, trying to work through county commissioners and the departments there, but we can't seem to get anywhere because they always say money, money, money. Is there anything we can do to kind of push these people in the direction of doing something about all the runoff, including the sewage that goes with it? Because most of us are on septic systems or pump grinders, and when they flood, all of that goes into Perdido Bay. Hello?
Hey, Shirley, we'll have to take that comment back.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there others that would like to provide input tonight? Please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 on the phone. One of the areas that we discussed and we've heard input around is environmental education. And through environmental education and outreach, where students and adults alike can be trained to prepare for environmental and STEM jobs and how to implement community resilience or habitat restoration in your communities. Are there any environmental education and outreach needs your communities have? We want to make sure our future leaders and workers are trained so that they are able to go out and promote environmental stewardship and responsiveness. And so that's one of the areas highlighted here on the screen. And we've received some input around environmental education and outreach during tonight's session. But just to generate some additional thoughts, are there any environmental education and outreach needs that would be of benefit to your community? And again, we want to highlight that there's a total of $5 million that we're looking to invest across the Gulf of Mexico region, $1 million specifically targeted for the state of Florida. Calvin, you may unmute yourself, please.
Yes, we're presently working with the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice, and we run a program, a training program, where we work with underserved, unemployed, underemployed individuals, and teaching them. They receive certifications in HAZWOPER, in OSHA. They do OSHA 30 construction, lead abatement, mold, asbestos abatement, and they receive those certifications, and we try to help them get jobs. But we're only able to do this once a year. It would be great if we could be able to train those individuals and get them, because if we're part of the problems we're talking about, who would be better suited to go back and help remediate those communities other than people who come out of those communities? And that this would give us an opportunity to be able to continue that program and give us we can train more students. Because like I say, we do about 25 students a year, but it would be great to be able to take that same program and train, say, 25 more students. And that way we would we serve several purposes. One, we take and give some individuals who might have missed a mark a career path, as well as being able to start giving them jobs with livable wages. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Matt, if you would unmute yourself, please.
Hey, good evening. This is Matt Posner. I'm the Executive Director of the Pensacola and Prudhoe Bay Estuary Program. Hopefully y'all can hear me all right. Appreciate the opportunity and EPA Gulf Division for hosting these webinars these input sessions across the Gulf Coast. And so happy to hear many voices from the Escambia, Pensacola, Santa Rosa County region. And definitely agree with everything that's previously been said. Another aspect to potentially consider, though, while typically many of these projects are done in public rights of way, a big challenge remains of getting the private property engaged into some of these solutions for a variety of reasons, whether it's water quality improvements or habitat restoration. So one thing that might be considered is looking at different cost share type programs where there could be a water quality or habitat restoration or flood reduction benefit. And I know that can be challenging, especially with federal funds when you're talking about work on private property. But I just like to see that considered because there could be a tremendous amount of benefits by being able to couple both the work that we as the community could do on public rights of way, in addition to getting the private property engaged in solutions as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Are there others that would like to provide input tonight? And please remember, if you're on the phone, simply dial *9. Water quality improvement projects can also be, water quality improvements can also be realized when habitat restoration and community resilience projects are implemented. Are there any specific water quality improvements needs in your community? That's one of the benefits of these measures that you see here on the screen. When you're targeting one, it's more than likely there will be other benefits associated with the one measure, whether it's environmental education, community resilience, or water quality. You get those ancillary benefits as well. Again, we want to make sure the $1 million investment in Florida is of benefit to communities. Please use this as an opportunity to serve as a voice for your community. We want to hear from you all tonight. Camille, you may unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I am concerned about when addressing issues of mitigation, whether that be related to water quality or environmental education, any of these categories, oftentimes we are dealing with having to navigate zoning. For example, you can't build this mitigation project here because this is a residential zone and you need mixed zoning. I'm wondering if there is a way to collaborate with cities on this funding that would allow us to overcome those zoning issues or invest in addressing zoning issues that are related to things that would allow us to rectify environmental injustices. For example, a fully developed community of color such as mine in Northeast Palm Bay being zoned as light industrial and continuing to be infiltrated by corporate polluters. How can this funding be utilized to support cities and municipalities in helping to address zoning that causes blockages in restoration projects?
Thanks, Camille. Are there others that would like to provide input tonight? And again, a gentle reminder for those on the phone, if you would like to provide input, please dial *9. One of the things that the Gulf of Mexico Division quickly realized when we started thinking about the environmental justice request for applications is that we understand one piece of the puzzle, I'll say it that way. You all on the line tonight are truly the experts and can truly speak to the needs and issues of your communities. And we want to understand that. We want to make sure that this request for applications is very intentional and reflective of those issues and concerns. And so again, just a gentle reminder, please don't hold back. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure the 1 million investment is truly of benefits to the communities you all serve. Mary, You may unmute yourself, please.
Yes, hi, thank you. It's Mary Gutierrez again, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm sure somebody will tell me if it's not. But I guess one of my concerns is the funding associated with these grants. I think it should be equally distributed in obviously impacted areas. And I think a lot of the funding, me personally, based on experience, should be going to frontline communities and grassroots organizations because they have a tendency to know what the greatest needs of the communities are. And majority of the boots on the ground, so to speak, work is being done by frontline leaders and grassroots organizations. That's just my 2 cents. I think, and I bring it up because what I've seen in the past is when funding like this goes to larger groups, organizations, the people that are living and working in these areas that are being adversely impacted are not being accounted for, or their voices are not being lifted up and heard. So I think this would be a good opportunity that people that are being directly impacted, that their voices are being heard and they are getting the funding and support that they need to correct the wrongs that have been happening in their communities for a long time, for a lot of times, for decades. Anyway, I appreciate you let me state that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Camille, I see your hand. Just want to make sure I'm not seeing it in error. Do you have any additional?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had an additional comment. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're very
Again,
welcome.
Camille Hadley, Little Growers Inc., Brevard County, Florida. Um, I have been watching the grant cycles coming from the EPA over the last year and a half, and I've noticed that the award amounts have been minimal. I know that you only have $1 million per Gulf state. However, oftentimes smaller award amounts, such as $25,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, those amounts that we've seen come out of some of the Justice 40 initiatives that have been on the smaller side are not enough to have great impact on all of the things that my community is experiencing and all of the things that I've heard from communities on this call tonight. Is their intention for the RFA to distribute larger amounts of funding to grassroots organizations to be able to see their projects to completion and success rather than those smaller batches of funding that we've seen coming out in the last year or so from the EPA? Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Do we have others that would like to provide input tonight? And I just want to check with my folks. Do we have anyone that's having technical issues that you all are aware of that would like to provide input? Okay. Again, we want to make sure we give everyone an opportunity to provide input and to educate us on the issues and concerns of their communities. So I'll ask you to please raise your hand or dial *9 on your phone if you would like to provide input. We're very appreciative of the input received thus far, but we don't want to end tonight's conversation without giving everyone an opportunity to speak. And as we've mentioned, we want to be very intentional with this request for applications. We wanted to speak to the needs and concerns that you all are hearing firsthand. So please don't hold back. We want to hear from you. You are the experts, and we view this as a partnership that we take seriously, and we want to do our part to ensure funding gets to the right communities, to the communities that need it most. And Andrea, just would do a check just to see, do we have anyone that has mentioned any issues from a technical standpoint? I don't want to overlook anyone. All right. Well, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Fred Thompson, our acting Deputy Regional Administrator for Region 4, Mark Wyatt, the Division Director of the Gulf of Mexico Division. I want to thank you all for joining tonight's session. The input we received is very valuable and will help to shape the development of our request for applications. Please know that this is not your last opportunity to provide input. We will be collecting input through the email address that's listed here on the screen. We will be posting tonight's recording along with the questions and answers to our website that is also listed here on the screen. We will have one last live session. It's targeting the state of Texas. That will be on Thursday from 6 to 8 Central Time. And please know that you may join into that session as well. We're targeting the citizens of Texas, but we want to hear from everyone. So if you feel that you have input, but you're not ready to articulate verbally your thoughts, you have an opportunity during Thursday's live session, and also you may email your input to us. Thank you so very much for your time, and we truly appreciate the input provided, the input that's being thought. You all are helping to shape the development of this future request for applications. We're partnering with each of you. Thanks so much, and have a great night. Be safe.